Ladies and gentlemen, the final qualifier match here for Tyrant's Tale. 2 players are standing still, but only one will make it into the main event. We've got Veek7, the co-developer, the Chromie himself, and of course, we've got Shopkeeper Dog, a brand new dude on the scene. He's ready to wag and woof and do other dog-related things like, I guess, just charge right in with a flying watchdog. That's what you do as a Terran player. Veek7 still playing as random. We're going to go to Cold Sweat for his map pick, and then following that, well, Mesk, we've got a whole bunch of different things. We've got Rageslave as Dog's pick. He loves that map. He always goes massively aggro on that map, so I'm interested in seeing how that one will take shape. And then further in the wings, Genesis Y, Maxiom, and if we need a decider, it'll be Impetus. What do you make a dog? Have you seen too much of him?
I was trying to think, have I seen Shopkeeper Dog actually play? And I think maybe like once or twice. So I really have no idea what his skill level's at or what he's capable of.
Gotcha.
We did cast a Veek set. Yeah, I think it was yesterday, wasn't it?
It was 2 days ago. Yeah, we casted it versus Mystery Meat. Yeah, the best of 5 there that went Meat's way.
Yeah, so I was definitely looking into that match there and could see that Mystery Meat was struggling a little bit, and Veek was also kind of getting punked on a few times. So, but when you think about Mystery Meat, you know, when he was in form, obviously he was winning just nonstop constantly.
Oh yeah.
So he was just at the top of the echelon, and even though he's shaky now, you still see some of that in this. So you can kind of be like, okay, Veek's probably going to struggle even if Mystery Meat's not at the top of his game. So I feel like Shopkeeper Dog should be a much easier opponent for him, but Shopkeeper Dog has also, I believe, been playing quite consistently too.
Yeah, he's been grinding it out and getting a lot of practice as Terran, you know, and when we had your birthday tournament, the Fraud of July, I actually wanted to have him in one of the upper card groups because of how strong he seemed to be as a player. Unfortunately, he wasn't available for that tournament, but he made up for it by getting pretty deep into this one. So let's see if he can make it all the way. That's always my concession, and you know, my thinking is like, how far can you get, and what's your sort of final ranking? We are going to see Veek7 roll Terran in the top left. This looks to me like it's Zinwald-eyed Brown. It is. See that? And then Shopkeeper Dog down here. Is this... ooh, this is a tough one. Eggshell Blue? Just turquoise. I never would have guessed turquoise, dude. Come on.
It's got a little bit of green there.
It does, yeah. Well, Shopkeeper Dog is a macro machine, but he hasn't shied away from all of that cheesy stuff. One of the things that I think you should watch out for, although I'm not sure that it'll be deployed versus a random player, is that when he was up against Smarty Cakes, he developed this build where he would go Fulcrum first, and then he would proxy his second Fulcrum, build a Palladium immediately, and proxy Phalanx. So
that brings me back to Starcraft 2 with the proxy Thors that were rampant for a while.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, I guess. And then when he pops out with the Phalanx, he, you know, his scout worker continues to proxy. He proxied a Stockade with a Vestry to make clerics. It's like most of his base was against his opponent's base instead of his own. So, you know, just little things. I don't think we're going to see that, but maybe since it can be almost done reactively because it's the second Fulcrum that gets proxied and not the first, maybe Shopkeeper Dog will see that his opponent is Protoss in one of these games and go for it, right? So that might be something that happens if Veek rolls that way.
Yeah, it's definitely high pressure play seems to be quite viable in this, and the maps, because in this are a lot larger than those in StarCraft 2. There wasn't usually a lot of need to proxy factory anybody in StarCraft 2 when the map distances were crossable within just a couple seconds. But within this, especially on this map here, this is a little bit longer of a map. So definitely you don't even really need to siege those phalanxes because of their armor and their tank form. If you have one just kind of pop out of nowhere at the right point, absolutely could be quite dangerous. And of course, we know Veek is going to build nothing but Cyclops.
Yeah. So
an early Palladium here, honestly, wouldn't be that bad at all. Just use their armor against the Cyclops. I don't think the Cyclops is... their AoE isn't spell damage, right? Like, it still gets reduced by armor.
Yeah, it has the same armor pen as their main gun, which is to say 0.
Yeah. So definitely tanks would be quite useful against that. So
yeah, that's right. You start taking 6 damage instead of 10 from both the main head and the AoE, so that could definitely be pretty good.
It's being quite defensive at the moment. I was just building a couple of Cyclops of his own just sitting behind his mines. We don't really see a lot of attempted run-bys in these games anymore. is what I really noticed coming back, is that usually with the early vultures, it was always just extremely hard aggro, really fishing for that worker kills.
Yeah.
But definitely noticing a lot of more defensive play out of the early Fulcrum in this.
Yeah, and in TVT specifically, we've seen some really interesting things. Obviously, I always go back to that Genesis Y match that you and I casted between Veek and Mist, where the Phalanxes and their positioning really did a number on Veek, even though he was so far ahead in that game. And now, I feel like that's a lesson that he can impart into this TVT match, where he's found himself up against, he's obviously knows his opponent's race, but him being random, okay, he's got to master the Terran. Let's see what he can do with it. I mean, not going for the Vulture does mean that he can get a Cyclops stack up faster, but when you're up against Terran, I'm not actually sure that you need the Cyclops stack. It's actually going to be, it looks like two-pad Wraith for Shopkeeper Dog. That's my guess. I don't know what else he would be making there. Maybe he'll make a single Trojan for the drops, but as of right now.
I mean, once drops, he's going to need probably more than Vultures for this, because it's not going to be like a really high lethality drop if he just goes Vultures. Especially when an opponent is also Terran and is probably making some degree of, if it's Bio, then he has Stem. If it's Mech, then he probably has Cyclops and Vultures of his own. So, it's, again, not very high lethality. Mass Wraiths could work against this, but because of the AoE damage, you don't really get to stick around a lot on the workers. So, you'll definitely want to have pretty good micro for this. And if you see like a Stockade pop out at any moment here, it's almost assuredly going to be Wraiths, because you'll probably see him get a Vestry pretty soon, but he's not doing that in the moment. He's kind of just looking around here, making sure there's no mystery meat anchors hiding in the sidelines. Meanwhile, there's that watchdog you were talking about earlier.
The Shopkeeper Watchdog comes on in to say hi and see what's going on. It will catch the treasury eventually. It sees that the expansion is coming.
Does he sell propane and propane accessories, or does he sell barking?
I don't know. I feel like the Cyclops is kind of like a dog-like unit, with the something about it.
Yeah, kind of like a dog,
doggish.
like how they stand up against like a door and jump. That's what our dogs did, and they destroyed so many doors doing that.
Yeah.
Like they just scratched the shit out of them. We had to replace like 2 or 3 doors in the one house from the dogs just jumping against them. It is going to be Wraiths. Now, he's committing to the Wraiths, even though his watchdog scouted all these Cyclops. So, while the Cyclops is not amazing for killing Wraiths, they do move very fast, so they're capable of responding very quickly. Which kind of puts us into sort of a mystery meat situation again. So we'll see if he can get the kind of damage out of it the mystery meat did. You'll see something very similar where it's like the Wraith into the Palladium.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious if he's just going to start massing tanks exclusively at that point, because this could become a very, very nostalgic match.
Yes, Wraith Phalanx could be a big deal yet again, but we have the double Palladium for Veek 7 himself. So he'll have the tanks a lot easier, a lot faster if he wants to go for Phalanx. And, Madrigals aren't horrible versus the Wraith stack, obviously. Like, they did get buffed right before this qualifier started to be played, so their AoE is a bit better on their mobile gun. And they move faster than a Wraith, I'm pretty sure, at least as fast. So you can definitely get the jump on them, but you will need some form of detection. And Veek actually... He doesn't have either structure that can afford him detection, right? He has no Stockade, so he no opportunity for Shamans. He has got no Star Pads, so no opportunity for Anseals. That's probably the one thing that I can imagine kind of biting him in the rear. But instead, he's going to catch that Vulture off to the side. He'll do some fancy micro. This allows the Wraiths to slip on by. They do not get noticed by the mines, but obviously there's a lot of Cyclops just kind of sitting around. At this point, the Spider Sense is tingling. A Watchdog has been placed at the natural for Veek, and his first Phalanx is out with more of them on the way.
Yeah, the Wraiths are going to the Nat. That's where all the defenses are. So this could go really, really badly for Dog. Oh, no, they're biting.
They are indeed.
A couple
that Watchdog was lifted off. It's not actually landed right now, so that's not going to help you out at all. There you go. Ends up correcting that issue.
But there's nothing in the main currently. That's really the critical thing, is the main is way more vulnerable.
Yeah, well, Veek has been doing a pretty good job with his macro cycles. You got to hand it to him. Despite this minor harassment, he's looking pretty good on the worker count. So that needed to do a lot more damage for Dog.
Veek's got his own star pad coming. And, yeah, it wasn't very effective. If he had gone to the main initially, he could have gotten probably quite a few more kills.
Yes.
And then cycled down to the Nat a little bit more easily, but he's trying to tickle these, but I mean, they have so much armor. Maybe they'll grab a couple of Masons here outside the protection of those Watchdogs.
That's right. Turns out that Dog is an enemy of a dog. It's a dog-eat-dog world right now.
Definitely some dog fighting. Now both players trying to make some tanks here. But I wonder if Veek will even consider leaving at the moment. He's just going to build 80 million watchdogs.
Yeah, he's going to rely on the phalanxes. So his fulcrums are not switching off. Okay, he's going to make one madrigal. I actually don't know if he even needs to. Like, I actually think he's got a pretty good spot here. Look at the Wraith count has been managed such that it's really not going to be able to take down the phalanx. It had so many free hits on that and didn't even get it below half, just to demonstrate the power of the armor in this situation. So,
yeah, just a little tickle on the backside. Veek could afford just to build like 2 or 3 more watchdogs in his main, and then maybe even consider moving out at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, his Anseal is out as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's going to have detection actively. He's going to have a madrigal for dealing with the stacked air, but the Wraiths are kind of bobbing in and out. They should be able to sabotage the stockade production. Maybe they can go after that Palladium. It only has the 2 armor, so...
Yeah, they can tickle this a little bit.
Uh-oh. Got to watch out for that madrigal. It is going to get sniped down. A little bit of a micro flub there from Veek. But he is moving out with the whole army, right? And so this is where things are going to get a little bit dicey. But there are some phalanxes entrenched already. First couple shots are going to go awry.
1 Wraith down.
Yeah, that's right, on the rally.
He can kind of like park here. I don't think he noticed that 3rd up, but he definitely can like sit there and deny that.
Oof.
And then wait for some of his stuff to... man, he's taking a lot of damage from this. It's how fragile Cyclops are. Can't really do too much against the phalanx. Oh!
The one vulture shot, stopping yet another phalanx shot from going awry. So, you know, at this point, the Cyclops count has been managed such that a Wraith stack could just come in here and wipe this out. So
absolutely. Got a little bit of damage here from that Madrigal, though.
Yeah, that's right. He stacked up a lot of units. And oh, man, the Madrigal just hits like 3 or 4 Wraiths down at once.
The Wraith, or the Anseal wasn't there to protect him and could have saved a couple if he had brought it over. But I think he was
the rally
for his tanks.
Guys,
Rallies have been getting to people a few times. Oh, and he didn't move it away.
No, and now he receives the treasury, so that is going to provoke a little bit more aggro here from Veek. I mean, it's only Cyclops and the Madrigal. It's not really going to be able to take the treasury down as it flies away.
Dog is having a little bit of difficulty controlling these Wraiths at the moment. A couple of them died chasing off after they got hit once. And that really thins down his Air Force at the moment, which he's not replenishing right now. But Veek ends up pulling back anyway, so he can go back and try to take that 3rd once he finds out that those aren't there anymore. But both players are becoming absolutely disgusting rich. Dog is definitely on a stage where he can go straight to tier 2. Veek is kind of hurting on the gas a little bit to be thinking about that. And he never put anything under that ridge in his nat, which isn't really helping him very much. So
yeah, that's one of the things that economic harassment early on can actually do pretty nice wonders for you. Your opponent might forget to put the gas back on, right? It's a pretty big deal. Now, this is another engagement. Plenty of phalanx shots going well for Dog. Madrigal tries to deploy. That's going to leave it open for Wraith stacks to come in and try to snipe it, and there it goes. But it's still not ideal here for Shopkeeper Dog. He's kind of on his last legs in terms of the military, but his extra fulcrums did just come on. So we are going to see Cyclops, Phalanx, Wraith versus Cyclops, Phalanx, Madrigal.
Yeah, he didn't bother going for that tier 2, but as a result, he's sitting on 2,000 minerals that aren't going anywhere at all, and that's the military presence that could easily force Veek back into his base at this point if it was actuated into units or tech or something by now. And Veek, on the other hand, has just added also a bunch of his own fulcrums and is just spamming cheap units and not really worried too much about the gas. Again, that ridge is still not saturated, even though he's saturated at 3rd. He hasn't realized he's missing some income from his nat at the moment. And that is not a huge amount, but it definitely impacts him at this point because he's completely throttled by gas at the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely contributing. You know, maybe he wants to maybe just end the game at tier 1, I think. Thinking about what he's doing now with all the extra fulcrums he's added, all the Cyclops and Vultures that are being queued up. He's taken 12 o'clock for a 4th. So he's going to be up a base pretty much the whole game. As the 20 worker advantage. Nice little leftover lobotomy mine. Actually stuns a small number of Dog's forces, but he is just outgunned right now.
Yeah, Dog has a couple of Anseals. He's got 3 of them, kind of just chilling there doing nothing at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
And they could be helping his phalanxes push this out.
Could definitely be the case.
Bring those over ASAP because he doesn't have that many units.
Yeah, he needs to be very on point with his micro, I think. And you know what? The other thing that's worth noting is he did end up sniping yet another phalanx. There actually is no artillery left over here for Veek. He switched off of production of phalanxes in favor of the cheap units, and only now realizes, wait a second, I need my 2 palladiums to start churning out those bad boys. So that's what he's going to do now, but that's actually bought him a lot of time. Shopkeeper Doug can try to really, really dig in here.
Yep. The NCLs are charging forth here, getting some sight down there, and added a couple tanks here. He's pretty safe at the moment. He doesn't have to worry too much, but eventually V could get enough vultures he can just kind of force his way into there. So
yeah,
just want to keep making tanks at this point. He's not quite at the point where he can afford to keep all the fulcrums going plus add in tier 2. But once he gets the gas income coming, he will definitely want to switch that off and possibly consider going for heavy air or something like that, so that he can use that to just put pressure elsewhere on Veek, because while there is like a lot of watchdogs here, a couple of wyverns can still kill quite a few workers. He might just be able to win a lot of pressure just off of the tanks alone, because Veek doesn't really have a huge answer to that at the moment. But
yeah,
the NCLs are never quite in the right spot to stop these tanks from picking him off, and units are constantly getting pulled into here, which keeps his army from really getting too huge. When you look at the army sizes, Veek's NCL is also in a bit of a okay.
Yep, see ya. So the NCL blocks on hits from proccing, so the Cyclops secondary projectile is never actually blowing up when it targets the NCL. Or when it gets intercepted by the NCL, I should say. So that ends up reducing its DPS quite a bit and makes it a bit annoying to try to chase it down with only Cyclops. Maybe. Shocking idea, but maybe you should build more than just Cyclops. I don't know.
Yeah, there's just pure Vulture coming out for Shopkeeper Dog as he goes for tier 2. Veek is also going for tier 2. He still hasn't noticed that ridge, unfortunately, but he is harvesting from the 4th. Just the geyser at the moment. He's got some idle workers there he can throw onto there. A couple vultures coming in here into the 3rd. They deny a watchdog, but otherwise
kill a couple of gas miners and stuff, yeah.
Small trade, nothing too major, but it does give Shopkeeper Dog a little bit of an idea of Veek's army composition. Wyverns could be pretty good at this point, but if Veek continues to neglect phalanxes, Catfax definitely can do pretty well against this to help even out fire against the larger number of quite fragile units.
Yeah, well, let's see what happens as tier 2 finishes up faster for Dog. You can already see him swarming. Veek is swarming the bottom left of his base to try to set up some tier 2 production. So he's on the ball. He's ready to build 7 mantles again, or whatever he's planning. It is going to be 2 mantles and a starport for Dog, so he's maybe thinking about both of what you said. Whereas it's just mantles right now.
Again,
for
the Seraphs are just great for this because Irradiate does so much damage, adds area denial.
Yeah,
a lot of these
units
are just very fragile. It fucks around with the cleric's healing so they don't get a focus heal or something. Unless you manually micro them, which most people are going to be doing. And they're, of course, capable of flying around the map, irradiating workers. Just, once you get a large number of them, they just add so much harass power. And
well, another stack of vultures is off to the left, and Shopkeeper Dog has secured a 4th base, so I guess we're kind of even on mining. Although this 4th isn't as saturated for Dog as it is for Veek, but relatively speaking, fairly even. I'm looking around for gas caps, and I don't actually see any yet.
Kind of critically at the moment is that Veek has so much money that once all these mantles finish, he's going to start building from all of them at once. And Dog is getting some catfax now, but Veek is going to be able to build from all of these once he remembers that they finished.
Yeah, 6 mantles indeed. Right, Vulture on Vulture action over here on the left. They both had the same idea, I guess. Stabbing
Veek
in for map control.
Send some workers up to the top right, and hopefully he doesn't forget about them, because right now there's definitely some Vulture murder going on.
Yeah, that's right. Just sort of moving around, seeing what's up. I have noticed that Dog sometimes doesn't lay his mines. This time I think he was a little bit better about that, but the NCLs are coming with the rest of the army. There's not really a... If he had another stack of vultures, he could actually charge over and start picking off phalanxes, but not actually going to be the case right now.
Not able to do a lot at the moment. There's no sentinels or anything coming up at the moment, despite the massive surplus of minerals. Some sentinels would be really great about now, but neither player is really building them at the moment, even though they're both well into tier 2.
Yep.
Instead, Dog ends up bringing over and redeploying his tanks. He's got both of these kind of walled off over here, but Veek could actually ignore these and go to the right, where there is a very large sum of workers that are completely unprotected. On both bases, mind you. Like, there's not even anti-air defenses anywhere in Dog's bases at all. He has not built any dogs. And
No dogs.
Similarly speaking, we could do some catfax drops here or something like that. Or put some catfax and anchors. I think you can do that, or at least you used to be able to.
Not anymore. Yeah, they're a little
Not
bit
anymore.
more.
Well,
more
some
busy.
Trojans would be sufficient, and because there's nothing over there.
Yep.
He would be just devastated by some Ramses or catfax showing up. And again, this isn't like the typical Ancil scouts that you see from like Neblime or whatever at this point either. So I don't think he's even really aware of that. Instead, he's just going pure catfact. That depletes all of Veek's gas quite sufficient. Should definitely think about some gas caps at this point. And then dump all the Qs into mineral only while those are building. And that would really help him out if this offensive is not able to get some momentum.
There's a lot of ultras here for Veek, and he has charged forward to try to break some of the phalanxes. Some wyverns and cataphracts trying to bring up the rear. More Ancials coming on in from that flanking force, but they're not following. The flanking force did not come the right way. Shopkeeper Dog maybe misordering some of his units. Most of his army was not on the way over from either that left side flank or from the south to reinforce.
They're trapped and they're spinning. That said, his units did kill enough of Veek's units that just the cataphracts alone is probably not enough to push their way through this. That said, some of those bases on the right are definitely getting tickled. There's no sentinels or anything over here. He has almost 5,000 minerals. He definitely could have afforded to build some defenses over here, but he didn't, and the consequences are going to be horrible for Neblime's countrymen.
Yeah, that's it. All of the Masons dying. Horrible, horrible deaths. But hey, still, Shopkeeper Dog only down 20 workers or so, 25 workers. That's pretty good, actually, when you think about it.
Veek's units are getting a little separated here, dying kind of needlessly into this little small forest, and he tries to double down on it, but now it's a little too numerous. The tanks are taking so much damage. Oh, no. He started to siege them, and they started taking more damage, and one of them died.
Oh, man. Yeah, not a lot of HP left on that phalanx. It has to fall on back. Okay, well, the third base has been cleaned up now. The attack in that area no longer still ongoing. And Shopkeeper Dog adding more mantles, needs to add more cataphract production. Continuing the wyverns, interestingly enough. No seraph or anything of the sort. And his fulcrums are all idle despite his considerable production.
Yeah, he's really, really, really rich. He's almost at the stage he can think about tier 3 again. And meanwhile, Veek is just making nothing but catfax when he definitely should have taken a look at the further right side of the map because it's still completely undefended. There's nothing over there at all. Yeah. He hasn't built anything in response to that. That flank could have been so much worse than it was. If he could control those units that were just pointlessly fighting the few things left over there, he could have definitely killed the vast majority of those workers before Dog could have even responded to that. Nonetheless, he ends up going down to the left side where a similarly undefended, just not as well saturated base can be exploited. He ends up killing the vast majority of workers there. Oh, there's a lot of damage from that.
Yeah, the 2 HP phalanx. Okay, it's finally brought on down. I was going to say, it wasn't really being focused.
I think he can force that down. If he pulls those catpacks off of the ministry, none of the phalanx. It's a little late now, but there's just a couple of them there, and they don't have armor when they're sieged, so he could probably force those down. But nonetheless, he'll get some workers for his effort. They happily charge into certain doom.
He kills that ministry in production at the third base as well. That's going to be kind of a disaster here, especially as that last one and the 3 o'clock location. There's no defenses over there. You mentioned it. Shopkeeper Dog, I think it's kind of gotten away from him. He was keeping even for a good amount of time despite that opening.
I don't think you really want to build madcaps when they've got mass catpacks. At this point, the madcaps take so much damage before they even get close enough, and as a result of losing all of his bases, Dog has to GG.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, Veek is up 1-0 in the set. Hey, that's one better already than he did versus Mystery Meat, so I'm sure he's feeling pretty good about that. And Shopkeeper Dog, you know, he struggles a little bit in that TVT. But there's 2 other races that he might end up getting in the future games. And I think, again, it wasn't a terrible showing from him. He just needed to figure out how to spend that money maybe a little bit faster. I think you could say that for both players. I didn't see gas caps from anybody.
Yeah, absolutely needed to have some gas. It would, knowing when to cap the gas can sometimes be difficult, but especially when all your stuff is already queued, you've got your catfax already queued, they take a while to build. So you can get a huge spike for a very small amount of comparative lag time by just building the caps at that point. And then by the time the catfax are done, the gas is probably going to be starting to get done too, or it will be done. And then your income is going to spike, and then you're going to be able to start building way more. And then suddenly you're going to be like, oh, I can start thinking about tier 3. I can think about another tech branch and so on and so forth.
Definitely can be the case. And now we're going to see what happens on Rageslave. Okay, Veek wins his own map pick. Let's see what Dog can do on his, because we can easily have an even one. Oh, Veek going to be Zerg this time around in the top left here. I can't really place this color. Is it mahogany? Okay, apparently I can place that color. And then here in the mid-right, I'm just going to go ahead and call this one... Oh, shit, actually, I didn't... I was going to call it, like, glacial, but I don't think it is glacial because it's, like, a little bit too blue for glacial, but I'm going to guess glacial. And it is glacial. Dude, I'm so good at this game. All right, so Shopkeeper Dog, he's going to be rocking a little bit of a slower Vespene harvest. No, never mind. He harvests with the first 2 workers that he makes. Okay, now I understand what he's doing. And Veek over here, as Zerg, I'm actually not sure how his Zerg is looking. Hit Him Up has been telling Zerg players that if you just go triple Larvosk on one base, that lets you like take a much delayed natural expansion, but then immediately saturate it almost. So if you're facing heavy aggression, which Shopkeeper Dog is known to do on this map, as he puts his fulcrum down, starts scouting the wrong way, but he can scout. There's only 2 spawns that you can get on Rageslave, since it besides your own, obviously. So at this point, he'll be able to figure that out. The timing will still favor him, I think. I think in this position, we should definitely be thinking about some early aggro that might force Veek to do that triple Larvosk. These are the kind of things that you might be
especially since he's going Larvosk first.
Yep.
If he just immediately sends vultures up top, this could do a lot of damage.
Yeah, that's right. He's actually going to delay his... oh, never mind. He was waiting for that last bit of Vespene. Not a perfectly optimized build, but pretty close, and definitely is going to be giving him that macro advantage if the vulture comes in a little bit late. And, now he knows where he is. But he should be able to come in here and maybe force a worker burrow or something like that at the very least.
Yeah.
And hey, if he brings this Mason with it, which he is, that could work out.
Who was it that was playing Zerg? I saw doing this. It wasn't Veek. It was someone else doing the Larvosk opening. I think it was probably games we were watching or something.
Oh, okay.
And I tried to do it just in the tutorial. I was curious, and that the Larvosk is really expensive.
Yes.
And I feel like because it's so frail, if you're under a heavy aggro situation, it's very easy to kill the Larvosk above certain other targets. And that would be so awful if that happens.
Yeah, imagine. I mean, that's happened to people and they've just rebuilt it, which is shocking to me. It's almost like when you see a top player and they lose their Iral Iris and they just start rebuilding it almost immediately, like nothing ever happens. Like, don't worry, that was only 900 gas. Goodness.
Oh, I remember one of my games against 3 Crow where I lost pretty much my entire main.
Yeah.
And Iris and all, I just had to rebuild it. And eventually went all the way up to tier 3. He's not going for the early aggro. There's too many ticklers out there already, but as a result, he's probably just going to go straight for his expansion, but he could try to camp this Nat with nothing but mass Cyclops and just kind of chill out and just deny the Zerg ever expanding. I feel like if you do this and you don't take your expansion, you're kind of inviting the Terran to build a bunch of anchors there with Cyclops, and now it's like
for
you
some
have
kind of
to
contain,
do some kind of drop or a Zorkiz or something else that is even harder in gas expenditure, which the Terran can opt to go for a very gas light and expand behind that. And it feels like you open yourself to some really, really bad timing shenanigans. If you go very, very gaslight on Zerg, there is actually a worker in Veek space that is not mining. He's chilling out, staring into the abyss.
Yeah, he's like, what is this map border you speak of? I could probably go there.
There's going to be triple Arvosk. Probably just going your build, mask Quasilisk, and nothing else at this moment. But
I mean, he's cheating by harvesting Vespene, but that's okay.
Mass Cyclops is really, really dangerous because they're also cheap. And I believe they'll just straight up out trade Quasilisks unless you're very good at micro. And on top of it, if you pick really good engagements areas. Now, in this map here, a lot of it's very open.
Yeah.
So you can definitely exploit the Quasilisk speed and get surrounds on small numbers of Cyclops pretty easily here. But if Dog plays around those little bridges and then the base chokes, and he starts taking a lot of kills off of Veek, it's going to be very hard to gain back ground against that. That said, Veek is just going straight for the expansion. After that, he's actually going to be building what looks to be a Spraith in his mineral line, probably fearing another Wraith all in. And while there is a star pad coming, it's just the one that's probably going to be for Nancy, is my guess.
Yep, adding 2 more fulcrums as well. He's been producing off of 1 fulcrum nonstop this whole time, so he could get his ministry on location. And Veek still doesn't actually know where his opponent is. He's going to confirm that now with his Quaslisk on the bottom left, but he doesn't really know the complexion of his army, how big it is. That could have been a partial enemy force. And you can see Veek has been playing very passively, very defensively, and so has Shopkeeper Dog. And when that happens, it favors the race, the player in general, that can macro out better and build more workers and scale their eco, and that's always going to be Zerg, like every time. So the fact that Shopkeeper Dog hasn't gone for any sort of forward presence doesn't necessarily have to be balls to the wall aggressive, but trying to do some kind of pseudo contain, force your opponent to overmake units and then fall back to a more defensive position, that slows down their ability to spike up their economy. And at the same time, I would say that if Veek had gone for triple Larvosk and then immediately went to the hatch versus someone who was being more aggressive, that actually would have opened him up to be even more vulnerable. But there was no taking advantage of that particular move. And now Shopkeeper Dog is about the same level of, he's got the same level of economics as the Zerg. And that never stays that way for long. Their graph continues to climb up, so... It's not going to be looking good for him on the worker front, unless he starts pressuring very soon. And the Palladium's not coming up, so maybe he'll be able to do that.
Yeah, the Larvosk opening is kind of like making a bunch of hatches in the beginning, but it's less overall mining time because the hatch costs 300 versus what I think is going to be like 200 something for the Larvosk, so it's a little cheaper overall. But it still opens up a lot of pressure because that's minerals that can't be converted into military units if something goes to shit in the first few minutes of the game.
Yeah.
Which means there's a big timing window that's open at that point for you to force them out of the gas or waste the gas and really screw up the timing of this. But if you don't do that, then you kind of enter the situation where, like, okay, the Zerg technically has like 5 hatches worth of larvae now, which is quite major. Especially if they're just building nothing but cheap units and going for tier 2, which is very obviously what Veek is doing at this point. He has just banked up a lot. He's going to go for tier 2. I would have actually thought it might be Bactylisks, but there is no Hydrith. Maybe he'll build a Hydrith while it's in production. He's going to wait for the Iris to come up. But really, there's a lot of great options that Zerg at tier 2 to deal with anything the Terran has at tier 1. You can go Convolesque, you can go air units. There's just so many different options you could go for. And at the moment, though, I mean, even when you think about just the army, Veek's army is a lot larger in terms of unit count. He can't really like move out with it, but the window has certainly passed to put a lot of pressure on this. I think that you could try to contain it and try to stop him from getting a third, but you have to move out at that point, and then that's going to kind of open you up. If he went something like drops or whatever, like, honestly, if you really think about it, if 3 Kagrants showed up in Shopkeeper's main, and then a bunch of Quasis hit his Nat, like that could be pretty bad at this point, given the size of the different units. And like, there's just, you have to think about stupid shit like this because people will do odd things like this. Not very commonly. We don't really see it much in the high level, but when you look at the mains, when people get very lax about defense in their mains, and then you're allowing them to build this huge number of units while also having a massive surplus of resources, pretty much uncontested. Yeah, I think it's actually going to be like massive Literalist because this looks like what he's going for.
That's what it looks to me like, yeah. He also had to cancel his hatch, unfortunately, at the 3rd. That's a really good move from Dog to slow that down a little bit, and he's going to be going for an Eidolon transition, I guess. So he's at least going Covenant. Maybe he's going to use the Savants for their penetration, would be another option. But he's making Phalanxes for the crowd control, so... Yeah, Eidolons, I think, make sense here. They're going to try to snipe out important units. The problem is, if Veek just continues to make Lyrilisks, they can charge straight down and focus down Phalanxes, and in tank mode, especially, or in siege mode especially. They can obviously bounce through the Cyclops stack. And there's not that many of them anyway. By the way, that whole time that Zeth was guarding the 3rd, so Veek knew that he was still going to be, ahead in terms of bases. He does have a secret base happening in the top right. I don't know how that worker got there. Through the Vultures. The Vultures must have arrived later or something, but...
If the Vultures came down, he would notice this timing, and you would definitely see some changes. But Veek is going to be moving out at the same time he notices it, and he's going to be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's just so much Zerg at this moment that I think that Phalanxes can definitely fight against this, but he's going to need way more than what he has.
Yeah, he has no mind coverage either.
With the Ancials.
there's really nothing stopping the run forward, right? That's where the mines come in. That's where Hurricanes can come in. A nice initial volley of splattering, but there's a lot more where that came from. Vik just needs to wrangle his units. It looks like he's going to fall back instead. He does have another force over there by the third that he can maybe try for a flank at some point, but he's also comfortable just taking an extra base over his opponent. He's behind the workers for now, but that won't be there forever. And you can see him already starting to stab out with that sort of secondary force that's going to alert Dog to the idea of a flank, because he has done nicely with mine coverage all over.
Yeah,
at least
I think
down
if
there.
Something like this happens where you go for this like Lyraless switch and it gets rebuffed like that, you immediately want to do a tech switch and add something on it, and then wait for the turn to move out, surprise them with it, kill their army, and then move in.
Yeah.
He definitely doesn't want to try to force this again with only ground units like that, because he has a huge tech advantage at the moment, but he needs kind of like a frontliner, a way to put damage on the phalanx. If you lose a chunk of units and then you lose a bunch of momentum off of that, the Terran can start creeping forward, and then you enter a situation where you can't really do a lot. And he went over here and just checking to see if there was like another expansion down there on the opposing side of the map. Didn't really find
Yeah, he
anything.
stopped the worker that was about to make it, so that's good for Vik. And the other thing, I mean, that was really scary if the attack came from the north, because there's only the one phalanx. He moved all 6 other phalanxes down there, and his reinforcement ones went down there as well, like really fearing the south push.
Yeah,
now the Ant Seals are going to get
starting to shore up
curious.
his weaknesses here. He's got some Hurricanes coming. Feels like Vik's going to be put into a really precarious situation because he's doing nothing but quasi still. And
yeah, he has not built any other tech. He's adding more Larvosks, I think, in the main.
It's the Lyralists are good. They're pretty tanky, but as the Terran gets more and more and more tanks and Eidolons, the issue is to actually be able to put damage on the Terran. And we saw right when he poked his head in that a big chunk of them just kind of got blown up right away. You have to be able to sustain that initial burst from the Terran and then get in and then fight them. And at that point, his army was large enough he could probably get in, but definitely would have preferred to not have the Ant Seals on top of them because there's so much effective health to burst through initially. He would have taken a couple of volleys, and then he may not have actually won the fight. But now he's fighting uphill, and it's becoming increasingly uphill because the Terran can put so much damage into one spot and force Vik to react to that. But the Terran doesn't want to fight this really out in the open, because if Vik is paying attention to this, he can swoop a chunk of these down and flank this and possibly get a lot of damage. He's going to come in all in the front here. The bounces are killing all the front line. There's a lot of Eidolons here. If he actually slips into there, he would probably kill them, but then the tanks would probably finish him off. So when it's just the Eidolons chasing him, though, then he's just not too much he can do about that.
Yeah, he could have maybe turned. They were far enough away that the phalanx shots would have started to deal friendly fire. That might have been an option for him to try to do that. However, the Ministry is now finished. It's going to float on over, and this is real bad news for Vik. If he is going to end up allowing his opponent to expand just south of his 4th base, sure, he's got that middle of the map. He's mining the triple gas with his some of those extra workers. He's going to go for Mutas. It's Mutas with a Zork's follow-up. So he's trying to maybe just dive bomb onto the single target of the Eidolons, and that's exactly what he's going to go for here.
Sticking Scorch Rifts on that ledge could be very good too, because if he wasn't doing this, that is. This is working out very well because he's going to lose a chunk of these Mutalisks, but that's okay because he kills all the Eidolons, and those are definitely much more difficult to replace. He kills all the Ant Seals on top of it.
And the phalanxes are all dead, Great move there, especially since some of those flanking units came from the main, or the 4th base there, and now the Ministry has to lift.
Oh shit, some Obelisks have arrived. He's got 3 Obelisks. That's 3.
That's 3.
Call out to the boys. The Mutalisks are now going to punish Dog's complete lack of anti-air or really anything in his bases. So many bases are going to die. At this point, he realizes, I can't do anything about that. I don't have enough of a military at the point. He wasn't quite able to hit that macro point, and Vik ends up taking game 2.
Surprising stuff that's the way that it ended, but it looks like you were talking about, like, as soon as the Lyralisks get rebuffed, you should probably go for a tech switch. Vik wanted to feel that out a little bit longer, but eventually he followed suit with that exact idea. And I think it's pretty interesting to see that we're going into Genesis Y now, and this could be yet another 3-0, but this time Vik 7 on the winning end of it. Qualification point. This is Dog's last chance. He fell to Mystery Meat in a hotly contested 2-1 best of 3. And, that was a game where I thought maybe Dog would be able to win. But instead, here we are, right? So, interesting times. Now, Shopkeeper Dog on Genesis Y, he should know the map. It's like one of the most popular maps we have in the pool. So we're going from Rageslave to this. very different architecture of the map, but everybody will remember that Phalanx play that Mystery Meat did. And Veek 7 is going to be Zerg this time around. He is down here in the bottom right, and I'm going to go ahead and guess that this is Redwood. Oh, it's Cordovan. God damn it. Well, that's an impossible color to guess. Shopkeeper Dog up here as just a straight-up green turn. There you go. So, good stuff.
Definitely the last match showed that while Dog had a good idea of pushing out, he ended up not, like, he was floating a lot of money at the end of that.
Yeah.
And, like, the macro did not keep up with it. And Veek was definitely, like, sitting on a very slippery slope where if the Terran, like, starts to control that bridge, it just gets really hard to take them out of it. And he could have built, like, Scorchriths on the ledge where that expansion was, and that would have also completely deadlocked that attack. He would have forced to bring the Eidolons forward, and then that's when you flank him. The Milas coming from both sides was definitely completely unexpected by him, but the thing about the trade is that the initial, like, the second fight, when Dog took that position and a lot of Lyriluks died, they ended up trading for a lot of the, like, the Cyclops and stuff that were a part of that army, and there was just, like, tanks and Eidolons left. That really helped the Milas shine up, and what ends up happening is Veek replenishes his army, but Dog really didn't. He had a few units back at home, but it was, like, vultures and stuff. And yeah, there was just, like, a little slip up there on the macro cycles, and reinforcing the army while being in that kind of point position allowed Veek to really take advantage of that situation. And now we're looking at what looks to be a very similar build from Veek, but this, I believe, is just a 2-spawn map.
Yes, that's right.
So he's definitely going to be taking advantage of the random race at this point where, you know, Dog may not expect that at the moment, but at the same time, Dog may go for a little bit more of an aggressive opening here. We do see his Fulcrum on the lower ground.
Yeah, a little bit further down. It kind of saves off like 2 seconds on the Vulture's arrival. Second Fulcrum is good. Yeah, okay, so here's the call, right? The pool is going to hatch as the Vulture gets to the natural. This is a little bit difficult. Like, this is going to be a situation where the Vulture can pick at least 2 workers here if Dog is on point.
Yep.
But he's going after the Larvask instead. I don't really like this because the Quasis are halfway done, and he's also going to start falling back. He's got a second Vulture, though, so maybe he's actually looking for longer-term pressure, and that's why he's chosen that target.
If he just fucks around long enough that he forces Veek to build nothing but Quasis for a while, if he's able to catch a few of them, if he's able to deny the Nat, there's a few ways he can try to apply pressure here. He can wait a little bit for some Cyclops and then try to maybe poke the ramp around, see if he can bait Veek down the ramp. There's a few ways he can try to manipulate this attack here, but definitely he wants to not enter the situation where Veek is permitted to go into tier 2 without any real contest and attempt to do that swap around again, because I don't think his build style really deals with that. I think that when we saw, like, the commitment to, like, the cat packs versus cat packs and the tanks versus tanks, there was a couple wyverns and stuff in there, but again, there was not really a lot of exploitation of Veek's very open bases, and he got exploited really badly in that last game. I think even if he managed to win that fight against the Milisks, if Veek had done the same thing that he was doing, sending Milisks to the main base, it would have been a simultaneously extremely hard callback for Dog at that point, because he's got all these bases that are totally undefended.
Yeah.
And then something I do notice is that some of the players really just do not like building defenses in their base, even when they're sitting on a ton of money. And that puts them in a situation where it's like, I don't want to spend money. Well, I've got money. But now if you lose all your workers, suddenly you are going to deplete that money. And then, yeah, you're just putting yourself in a really risky situation by not doing that. And I feel like that in this match here, he definitely recognizes he wants to be more aggro early on. But he's definitely got some, like, idle workers here to manage the battle worker ends up reminding him, hey, there's some mazes here.
Well, the bigger problem there is that the lack of a quarry was just scouted. Veek knows this is a military-focused, all-in kind of push. But he still looks like he wants the triple Larvask. He's not going for any static defense of his own. He's relying on only Quasilisks.
He's building all Quasis. He's building the Larvask. Now, Quasis can win this because it's still mostly Vultures. But he has to be pretty careful because Dog has had just complete dominance over this Nat for a while, which means there's going to be lobsters everywhere, and he's able to prevent Veek from thinking too much. Oh, there you go. Just like that. That's precisely what Veek wanted to avoid. They kind of get throttled a little bit. The Cyclops count is still kind of low here, so Dog doesn't want to commit too much, and once they get them low, he could tickle in and out here. Some of these frontal ones are a little low. He has to, if he denies this Nat, the game is pretty much his. But if he doesn't deny the Nat, then he's going to be kind of stuck in a similar situation. He's going to want to try to pull up pressure later on. But this map's a little different than the last one. This choke point is terrible for Veek. If Dog forces him to fight in this choke point with a large number of Cyclops, kind of like what he's trying to do right here, Veek's going to be taking a lot of splash to try to chase him out of it. So he can just keep poking in and out here, trying to macro behind that and start building stuff. He's got a lot of minerals in the back.
Yeah, he just did a round of workers. Mesk, this is only 18 quasis. Like, he will end up losing to this, especially if they're all split up like that.
Yep. Now, Veek doesn't want to chase him out there. He knows that that's a bad spot. He's got him split up because he wants to do a little surround. He wants to bait Dog into that. Dog does not want to go into that dog door. He wants to dig under the fence and steal people's treats and just pee on the carpet. But Veek is being very, very resistant about that. Now, you send out some Zeths here, but they caught a little too far ahead. And then he's just kind of put in the same situation.
Then he's in the choke, right? So then he has to fall on back. Yeah, dangerous. So far, only lost a couple of quasis, but as he tries to bite on that attack, that's not going to work out too well for him. All the Cyclops grenades still on
each other. This is dangerous.
Oh, man. Yeah, this is where it can go from real bad to worse. He did not micro those quasis correctly, and he's only got 4 pairs coming. Now the hatch going to be...
time out the explosives, but he ended up being a little too aggro, moved in a little too early, and ended up taking them all in the face. The dog
I think a lot of it is down.
Dropped.
He lost a third of his quasis just to that one mine hit, really, in that early engagement. So, and look at how many of the quasis are bruised as well. Maybe a minor bit of extra focus fire could have helped. And I did call this an all-in earlier, but look, now the quarry's coming out on the ministry that was built at the natural. Like, the worker count is still pretty low here for Shopkeeper Dog, but he is going to be
He's got a lot of minerals, so he may as well start spending them on workers and try to build into this, because he's not feeling like he can immediately take the ramp. But, I mean... he doesn't really have to at the moment. He can go for a little bit slower pace to the victory here. He can honestly send down workers, build some anchors here, just pitch a tent and just stick the stuff in it and just be like, okay, you can take your nap, but you're going to have to build like another 50 quasis to do so. In the background of that, I could be going for tier 2. I could build another 4 or 5 fulcrums. But he's going to try to burst this down with Zats. Again, they get a little bit ahead of his units, so they end up dying before the quasis are quite on.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's just an utter massacre with that spread of them. This is one of the significant parts is that, like, Zerg does really benefit from having the surround, and he can't really get that in the natural, right? So...
I think it would have helped for him to build maybe some Dwarves or something.
Right.
And then pack them together with the quasis.
Battle workers.
So that the quasis... battle workers. The quasis start attacking when they enter the range, but then the Zats get on top of them.
Yeah.
As it is, though, he can kind of leapfrog the attack force because they get so separate. Oh, battle workers!
Battle workers!
They're coming! Go, the lobster has been slapped. They're biting. They're biting. Oh,
it's not quite the glorious end of battle workers that we saw the other time. Yep. But, you know, it's still battle workers.
They're biting. He is picking these off. He gets all the Cyclops. The battle workers annihilate that vulture. Just fucked him. And now Veek is finally able to take that expansion. He's got a window of about 10 seconds, 20 seconds until these units arrive. Instead, though, he's going to fortify his ramp with some circuits here. This is,
well, here's the other thing, right? He's making the one oval. He's got almost enough gas to tier up. And that's the thing where I think if he had known that, he probably would have made units other than Quasilisks versus Mass Cyclops, you know? That would have probably been a good option for him, but...
Gorgokoras, Lakislesks... Maybe
hit him up really likes
Bactalisks would do too well, but yeah, Bactalisks can be really good if you go for that. Slow push your way out. I think you're definitely working against. I think he wants to use the Ovolith mostly for mine clearing in this moment and moving the K-Rinse over here. He's got one in there, but there's so many units over here that Dog does not want this. He will not be colored. He will not be contained. He will
start his quest for a reverse sweep here. It's looking that way anyway, just by the nature of how this game is going. Right?
3 bases. That's going to be 2 quarries. And Veek,
Veek's like, I'm out.
He's like, yeah, it's fucked.
Well, there you go.
He might have been hoping that the aggro would just like blindly continue and then he could push it out again, but Dog was cautious.
He was a bit too smart for that. Yeah, a bit too careful. Dogs normally just run straight in, so... It makes sense, but in this case, he was a bit cautious. He had a little bit of cat in him, I guess. Doggone it. So I will say, as we get into Maxiom, this is a 4-spawn map again. If Vik rolls Zerg yet again, we could end up seeing, well, for one, we could see the legendary 4-spawn map, instant pool, But if he gets Zerg, again and he goes for that Larvosk, it could work out really nicely for him. So we're going to jump in here. It's going to be Terran. Okay, so Shopkeeper Dog is in here as, I'm going to guess this is bronze? Oh, that's mahogany on Terran. I never saw that before. And Vik 7 over here is, it's not orange. Is it pumpkin or mango? Mango? No, vivid orange. Well, whatever. I was wrong on both counts. All right. So we've got the Terrans. We've got them in action. And
cross
spawn, yeah. So, I mean, should be the longest game of them all. But
that's a really open middle of the map. Holy shit.
Oh, yes. Massively. Lots of stuff to do with that. And it's basically Axiom, but 4-spawn, right? Maxiom. Yeah. Makes sense.
So, yeah, this is the map with when we were waiting for stuff to get nuked. Ooh. Yes, the neutral bases that were like just waiting to get nuked. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think you're going to see... You could see some aggro in this if they cross Scout, but they're both going Fulcrum, so I feel like it'll be kind of similar to the first game where they just sort of accept that they're going to go for an expansion first.
Yes.
The real question is are they going to both commit to like tank cat facts? Is Shopkeeper Dog going to go for air again? Wouldn't be too risky to go air on this behind some wall, but I feel like Vik will be kind of expecting that.
Dude, the Cataphract has voice lines, but he doesn't ever talk about cats.
Oh, that's a shame. It really should just have been a series of cat facts.
That
Every
should be
line
the
is a cat fact. Yeah. You just got to get the cat fact app on your phone.
There probably is a cat fact app.
There is. That's where that comes from.
Oh, okay.
That's the origin of that is cat fact. There's bird facts too.
And it's just a series of pictures of me.
Yeah. Just various AI generated crows.
That's like what 3Crow does. His avatar is still,
exactly.
I think, that Protoss crow or whatever.
Exactly. So, Shopkeeper Dog wastes no time to go for that quarry. That's his second major purchase here.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because the last time it was Shopkeeper Dog skipping the quarry to do aggro, and this time Vik's doing that with the no quarry, second fulcrum.
He'll have eyes on that quarry, but at this distance, I'm not sure he can make too much action on that. He is making pretty much nothing but Cyclops at this point, but it's pretty hard to make that work even against Vultures just because of mines. Not like they can burst down mines very easily, especially in small numbers. He might be expecting more aggro, but I think Shopkeeper Dog is pretty locked in here for a longer game.
Yeah, that's what he's looking for. He's actually idling his fulcrum a little bit here. Wants to keep the worker production instead. Somehow for a second.
Pulled everything off of gas even. He's not interested in any tech or anything else at the moment. Just
that's
building up,
interesting.
bulking up, lifting those gains, sick gains, not building any units. This may... Is he just
it's just going straight into an expand. Yeah, he's mining up for the ministry.
He's absolutely greed max. This is precisely how I play too.
There you go.
Absolutely
Ministry out.
Can appreciate it. Just greed max. Absolutely. He wants that.
So is he going to get punished? Because the fulcrum, the double fulcrum here with no quarry and the Vulture 5 Cyclops are moving out on the map now. So
there's a few units coming for sure. It depends if Vik gets spooked by the lobsters or not.
Oh, he's doing the Watchdog Scout at this time. This is not a good time at all. But the Vulture does get picked for free. So now Dog needs to fall on back. Let's see what he can do. Okay, that's some really good hits there. This should make Vik think twice. Still no military units coming out here, though. There's nothing in production right now. Shopkeeper Dog is...
This is Diamond Hands. Absolutely. Yes. Diamond Hands moment. He could send down a Mason to repair that one Vulture. It's worth its weight in birds at the moment. But unfortunately, it dies. He gets in a little bit of damage there.
Oh, he even detonated the mine from Vik himself with to slow things down, but he wasn't able to really capitalize on it. His second Cyclops is up. That ministry will tank damage for a good long while. A second Fulcrum coming. Oh, he cancels it though. Okay, well, he gets the most of the money back, but still, that's a lot of his tempo gone.
Yep. I think he could have brought workers up to repair those, but he started to panic, and at that point calls it.
Yeah, he can't do it. The early aggro to punish the greed, and that's how Veek 7 makes it in.
I don't know.
No.
A Panic Anchor might have been able to save him because he had a little bit of time there. But definitely, he doesn't really seem to be a big fan of feet.
Yes, well, static defense in general. The only time I saw him build anchors, really, besides some of the early games that I played against him, where I was spamming insane amounts of Mavericks and Quasis, well, obviously, where he builds anchors as part of his cheese push to like proxy half of his base into the enemy. So that's what he did versus Smarty Cakes. But even still, it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's surprising, man. I'm very surprised that
I kind of feel like if you're doing something really greedy like that, an anchor instead of a second fulcrum would have been the better call.
Yeah, or really like the other thing was he was also, I guess in retrospect, right? He didn't have any forward presence with his units. He didn't know that the move out was happening, and his scout that still lived with 2 HP kind of baited him there. If it had been killed instead, he wouldn't have spent 100 extra minerals on the Watchdog scout. He would have probably just made a unit, right, like a vulture or something, and then that could have changed everything, right? So yeah, there's a lot there. There's a lot there to unpack. That if that's your first game or something, you can shake that off, but I'm sure it sucks to lose the best of 5 in that fashion. Because he was cooking something with that mineral only switch, and cut all gas harvesting, go straight into the ministry. I liked it, and the score screen liked it. It was pretty much dead even there if you look at the score screen. But obviously pretty big differences when it comes to those early units. Veek 7 finding the way to victory, and so Vivid Orange Veek ends up dominating the dog in that one moment, telling him to stay and wait until the next tournament, because
he brought out the newspaper.
Yeah, that's gonna be it for our boys' run. I would say pretty good for him to get all the way here, dethrone or dispose of a number of the people that we've all come to know as pretty strong players and adequate level players, right? You think about him defeating 3 Crow just in the previous match to get to this point in the tournament. Obviously, he took Mystery Meat to a 3-game set and looked pretty competitive in all 3 of those games. That's a series that is definitely worth a watch. But now coming into this, his TVT couldn't shine him through. In that Rageslave game, I think he had a option to do tempo, but that's like maybe inexperience in the matchup or something, right? Not necessarily knowing where his openings come from. So. Well, there you go. That's it. That means Veek 7 rounds out our list of competitors, and his opening match against Hit 'em Up will be played and casted along with all the other opening matches, the quarterfinals of that tournament, when we next have time to cast them, Mesk, because we actually, technically, as of the time of recording, we only have one more series to get played, and then we can start organizing the time to broadcast those to you guys live. But thank you to all of our referees, our refraudies, actually, Jujic and Inozlix and 3 Crow, and I think at one point Lucy all helped out for this particular tournament. So hats off to all y'all. It was good to see some of those matches be played. At one point, Hit 'em Up himself even adminned like the last game. I think this game actually. So shout out to him as well. He wasn't supposed to be an admin per se, but he happened to be on, and he was like, "Yeah, I can do it." So yeah, cool shit. And thank you to Mesk for joining me for the cast. I am excited to see what happens in this tournament, because we've got a pretty strong list of players. When we're getting to the point where there's like contested series to qualify into these tournaments, like that the level of competition's going up, right? Like I actually don't know if I can confidently call any of the opening sets of the tournament, and I wasn't really confident in even calling this set, for example, right?
Yeah, so. I think this was perfectly, like this was definitely not something I could call. I think Dog is in a good position to take this. Just a few like little minor, fairly minor misconsiderations, or like not really spending quite enough money or whatever. It was definitely quite close. I felt it was much closer than the meat sets. For sure.
Yeah.
It was definitely quite close.
I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next, because if we can get this sort of like back and forth where, like, if we have these 8-team tournaments or 8-player tournaments in the future, and like we still have like a sort of on the bench waiting is like 3 to 4 players that could compete for the qualifier spots. Like that's pretty hype to get to that point. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. That concludes the open qualifier, guys. We'll be back later on this week for some of the main event games. So yeah, stay tuned. We'll tell you guys about it and plan the streams out and stuff like that, so you guys can see it in action. But we talk about that on the Discord server, so join us there if you like. And again, thanks, Mesk, for joining me on the cast.
Yep. Smoke weed every day.